Please, somebody really, really research real tennis so they can present on it at some point. I really want to understand that sport because apparently a lot of the pros, because I went down a rabbit hole, but apparently a lot of the modern pros in real tennis start off in a pro squash player background before they move into real tennis. Apparently the real tennis ball is much heavier than a tennis ball.
Yeah, well, it's not much heavier. It's, what is it? It's 7.5 ounces instead of 7 ounces, I think.
Oh, right. Whoever was...
but it doesn't bounce nearly as much, that's the thing, because it's made of a different material, and I think the weight is distributed slightly differently. It doesn't bounce nearly as much as a real tennis ball.
You mean a lawn tennis ball?
Yeah, sorry, not a real tennis ball.
They're hand-stitched, I think, the balls in real tennis.
Yeah, they are. And only 2 companies in the world, I think, still make the rackets.
Huh.
Grays of Cambridge and something in the US.
They're curved, aren't they?
Yeah, they're asymmetric.
Which I love, because, you hook it.
Yeah, I mean, it adds to the asymmetry of the sport. The whole sport is asymmetric. Something that was really cool that I didn't know about real tennis, but you can only change serve if the person who's in the hazard end causes a chase. Basically, like...
That's what they call rallies, isn't it? A chase.
No, the chase, you see, that's interesting. The chase occurs when the person in the serving end drops the ball for the second bounce, but that actually, they don't lose the point. Instead, they have the chance to win the point back in the chase when they're in the hazard end. Or something like that. I don't know, that's what I vaguely recall. I'm literally reading the Wikipedia page in my mind as I speak.
This is amazing! We need to put together a sporting competition made up of really weird sports that people, cheese rolling, shin kicking, real tennis. What's that Finnish sport where they? Oh, hobby horsing.
Oh,
where,
yeah.
where they run around with a toy horse, with a head and the stick. But they do all the equestrian events, like show jumping and dressage and things like that. Which is bizarre. Oh, another weird Finnish sport. Wife carrying. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a big obstacle race with your wife on your back. And the prize is you win your wife's weight in beer.
Wow. That sounds great. Let's do that.
It sounds hilarious. Hello and welcome to Speaking from Ignorance. I am your host, Grigory Potemkin, the former lover of Ekaterina the Great of the Russian Empire. I, of course, took over the Crimean Ilkhanate. Welcome. Actually, again, I'm actually Henry Holmes. That was my chameleon-like ability allowing me to disguise myself.
Whoa, audio camouflage. I definitely thought he was Russian.
What a genuine audience reaction. That's what I love. That's what I live for, isn't it? Okay, who's next?
I'm Daniel, astrophysicist, and
Yep, that sounds about right.
Ace to Daniel.
I haven't thought of an intro again this week. I didn't think of one.
Hi guys, my name is Jacque. I am a charity doer for a award-winning charity, and I'm also a self-declared Excel wizard.
Hi guys, I'm Sid. I'm also an astrophysicist.
What's the first question, man, Sid?
Well, the first question was actually proposed by Daniel. And it's, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well can you picture something in your mind?
So this question was inspired by another podcast I listened to, which shall not be named. No plug here. So on this podcast, they asked, they were talking about differences in the way people, like, their mind works and pictures things and visualizes things in their mind. So they used this question to sort of start off the conversation, which was, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well can you picture something, I don't know, like an apple in your mind? So, like, with 1 being, like, extremely, like, you can't physically picture something in your mind. It's just you know what an apple is, you know what it looks like, but you can't like bring that image into your mind. And 10 is where like the apple is basically, you close your eyes and it's right there in front of you.
To be honest, I'm much closer to the 1 end of the scale.
Yeah, I'd say I'm close to the 10 end.
Yeah, if you say 10 is you close your eyes and see it, that's 10. Yeah. Because I'm a
Really?
very visual learner.
I really
wow.
struggle to picture things in my mind.
Well,
really struggle.
throughout our entire degree, I basically got through courses by being able to picture things and move things around in my head, and like looking at things from different angles, for example.
Yeah, no, I think I'm.
Otherwise, I
pretty
don't
much
get
exactly
it.
the same.
I'm not
Yeah,
very good at maths.
Yeah. You know, before I'd thought about this, I just assumed everyone thought in the same way.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, like I didn't realize that some people couldn't picture things in 3D and move things in that, like visualize and be able to move things in their head until I spoke to someone who was like, no, you're the weird one.
Yeah, I can do that.
I only picture things in monochrome.
Oh, you don't see color at all?
In my mind, no. apart from when I'm asleep, when I'm dreaming. When I'm dreaming, those images are as crisp as the reality I experience on a day-to-day basis. But in terms of just consciously using that ability, if I were to close my eyes and attempt to sort of bring an image to the forefront of my mind, I really struggle with that because it's normally just black darkness, and then I have to really sort of concentrate to bring any sort of image out of that.
That's interesting. Yeah, Jacque, what about you? Yeah.
Wait, hang on. Okay, so like this is really difficult because I have no idea like what you guys normally experience, but like for me it is always black, right? And I'm not like
none of us
actually...
do know what each other experience
Okay.
because we can't
Yeah, so
truly know.
maybe starting with Jacque, we each go around, and when you, for example, I think picturing an apple is a pretty easy exercise, but if you want to start, Jacque, try and do it, and then just try and relay to us what you quote unquote see or don't. Like try to tell us what your thought process is without obviously dissecting it too much, because that's going to contaminate the experiment. But if you just naturally try and picture something in your mind, what do you actually see?
I mean, it all feels very fuzzy to me. I can picture people and things and places that I've been and seen before. But if you're talking about like abstract ideas like apples, right, or I don't know, tables or chairs, right? I can think of a chair that I've already seen before. But trying to think of a like hypothetical table or chair or even apple, that's something that's like almost impossible for me.
Right. So you can't like create new images in your mind.
No, not all.
What about you, Holmes?
I'm pretty much in the same boat as Jacque, actually, because I remember because it's a big thing that lots of actors use as part of their process is sort of summoning an image into their minds, or some actors actually who are really gifted at this kind of thing will actually overlay the space, the fourth wall especially, with what they imagine that wall to look like, and so they literally will not. They'll be aware the audience are there because
it's not psychosis, right?
It's not psychosis, but they know where everything is on this wall. Whereas I don't see it at all. I'm very aware that the audience are there. The one time I have used imagery as a sort of exercise, it was when I was doing a First World War play, and I managed to visualize the Somme, but that's only because I've seen hundreds and hundreds of photographs of that as part of my research. So I think actually what I did was just call to mind one of the photographs rather than...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. So I'd say, going back to the apple example, if I try to picture it, I think I can picture it quite well. Like I can physically see the apple. Like I can tell it's green, it's got a little stalk, it's got a label on it. I don't know what the label says. Like that's a bit fuzzy, and I'm not really sure where the apple is. It's on a table, but don't know what table, where the table is. It could be a wooden table or a marble table. It's vague and changes, but the actual image of the apple is pretty solid. Well, maybe not solid, but
as solid as it could be in your mind.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying I'm more like a 8 or a 7.
That's crazy.
Because it's not like...
Well, I can't. Yeah. So, first of all, apples are red, not green.
Yeah, mine's green.
Well, it's because we defined the scale as 10 being you can picture something well in your mind that I said 10. But every time I picture something in my mind,
as if you're looking at it in real life, like you close your eyes and it's basically the same as looking at it.
No,
obviously not literally, because
yeah. Well, I'm pretty good at it. Like I can recall images into my mind quite easily, and I can. For example, if I'm looking at this apple, I can place it in different environments. I can look at it from different angles. I can see how light shines on it from different places and basically move the little glare square, I guess.
Yeah. You move it around in Blender, right?
The thing is, But when you mentioned, there's a label on it, immediately, because my apple didn't have a label on it, but then I could put a label on it and then zoom in and, quote unquote read what it was, but I can't view that level of detail when I don't when I'm just looking at the apple from afar.
So your mind has a zoom and enhance function.
Yeah, that's what your mind should do, right? You should be able to just go in and just edit things and then go back out.
But when I imagine the zooming in on the label, it's a totally separate thing.
It's a different. I go into a different zone to zoom into the label, and when I zoom back out, the label is there, but it's blank again.
I don't know if you've done many spatial reasoning tests and things like that, but I'm very good at them. Despite the fact I can't picture something in my mind and turn it round, I am actually quite good at that.
Yeah, no, what I will do is, generate the shape in 3D and then turn it around in my mind.
Yeah.
And then see if it's the same, basically.
But it's super interesting about the whole rotating thing, because, I can't imagine, picking things up and, moving shapes in my mind, but I can still play Tetris, right? I can see a shape and I know if I turn it, it's going to be like that, but I won't necessarily be able to imagine moving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Can you feel the apple? Do you have the sense of touch when you go to reach for it? Because I can feel it as if it was here. Obviously, I'm not activating those parts of my fingers, right? I'm not actually feeling it, but I sense the feeling as if it were there.
No, I can't really feel it in the same way as I can picture it. I know the sensation of an apple. I can sort of abstractly know what the feeling would feel like, but I'm not actually which I guess is sort of similar to what you go through with visuals. You're you know what a thing looks like, but you can't actively see it in your mind.
Yeah. So can you, Jacque and Holmes, can you feel an apple?
I weirdly can, but it's something that I just am able to do, but it's quite tactile. I mean, it has a direct. I'm actually quite a good mime because I know where everything is in space. I can track all of the objects in inverted commas that don't actually exist. I do remember a tutor of mine in first year. I was doing a scene, and a sensible person would have just gone and got a cup and gone and got the other props from around the studio. I didn't know. I just mimed them all, and she went, "Okay, I've got notes for you on the acting, but that was a masterclass in mime." I was like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah. What about you, Jacque? Can you feel apples?
That's a great question. It's something I've not really thought about before, but now that you say it, I mean, yeah, definitely. I can definitely imagine the texture of an apple and the texture of silk and cloth and then rock. But it's not crisp clear, just how
it's so clear
my imagining of objects isn't crisp clear either. Just to kind of illustrate a little bit more, when I was imagining the apple, it was no more than a mere outline that a child could draw and a little stalk, and then that was it.
I'm much better at visualizing the feeling of things than I am visualizing the actual object, in my mind. So if I picture the apple, I can give it color, but I have to actively think to give it color, and it's more I'm looking at segments of the apple, and then my mind is moving pretty quickly,
coloring it,
filling in the blanks, right? I can picture it, I can move it, and I can do all this manipulation and whatever, but feeling an apple is second nature to me in my mind.
So is it the physical feeling, or is it the sensations of that you associate with an apple?
Well, I can imagine running my finger over the stem, or if there's a leaf, that, or over the actual skin, if there's any surface imperfections, that, how hard or soft the apple is, the bottom, like a little spiky bit.
And you do that in your mind? Because I find that I when I do that, I'm quite tactile. It's associated with my actual.
As I said that,
hands, my
in my
implements for
mind,
touching
I
things.
moved around the apple to feel it.
Same.
So it's almost like my camera has the sense of touch and smell and hearing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I can picture those individual bits of the apple, but I can't really feel them in the same way as I can visualize them.
I'm gonna totally flex here. I can visualize it, feel it, smell it, even taste the apple.
But can you hear the apple, though?
I can, actually. I can hear the crunch of the apple. I can hear it as it falls out of a tree.
Yeah. Sound, I'm also quite good at recalling and imagining. Like, I can hear crunch of someone biting into an apple.
Yeah. But I have a pretty musical background, so that might be...
Yeah, like music, I can, like, recall in my mind.
I sometimes, like, say... Yeah, I can, like, play entire pieces in my head. And
yeah,
it won't
play
sound...
an entire song.
Yeah, it won't... Obviously, it's not the same quality, right? But to me, it sounds the same, because that's how I perceived it. And I think I have a pretty good musical memory.
What goes on in your mind when you read a book? Specifically a fiction book? Because for me, I will actually picture the scene in my mind.
Yeah, me too.
The characters and stuff, and will give them individual voices and different things.
Oh, okay. I try to give them individual voices because I like training things like voice acting on the side, but it's hard for me to give them individual voices because when I'm reading a book, I don't hear the characters. I hear them through the narrator. But I do picture the scenes. But I also picture them in the art style that is, for example, on the cover, or if it's a film that has a book, or rather a book that's been developed into a film, and I've seen the film or footage of it, then I'll picture it in that style.
Sid, when you're reading, does the narrator narrate in your voice, or does it have its own voice?
Naturally in my voice, in my head voice, but
yeah,
I can change the voice. I can make it whatever I want. It's just naturally it defaults to my voice.
Yeah, your default like thinking voice in your head. Yeah, okay, same. But I can give certain characters different voices.
I can, but it's difficult for me. I'm trying to get better.
Also, similarly, like when I'm reading messages like from you guys, I will read it in your voices.
Really?
What I'm reading.
I tried to do that. I don't know what voice I read it in, but also I read really quickly, and sometimes I don't vocalize the information. I will just skim through it, and I'm technically reading it. My eyes are going across the page faster than I can actually vocalize the information. Sometimes I don't get all of it, but oftentimes I can just...
So like when I'm reading text messages from you, I will like imagine you speaking them to me.
Yeah.
Basically what I'm doing.
I can do that, but I don't. I don't naturally do that.
I wish more people did that because you get so much more from it if you infer the tone. Because
exactly.
Sometimes you'll read a message and if you haven't really thought about what the tone of the message is, you just read it as though it's perfectly genuine. Well, that's odd. Or something comes across as cold when it's not meant that way.
For me, when it comes to reading, it's just words. It's just like my own internal voice, just reading out loud.
Do you read fiction, Jacque? Or do you just all business now?
I used to read fiction, but now it's entirely non-fiction.
Really?
Too much
entirely?
Business.
So, Jacque, you said things are just words to you when you read a book. I don't know how much this makes sense, but do you watch a lot of films?
Yeah.
Or series or TV shows, things like that?
I do.
Can you remember them? Like, can you play them back in your head? Like, if you really try. It doesn't have to be perfect, obviously, but can you sort of remember scenes from it that were really iconic?
Definitely.
Okay. See, that's interesting, because you can remember things visually, but you can't create an abstract concept. Okay, cool. But if the image of an apple had really implanted itself, really made an impact, then maybe you would be able to remember something like that as well.
Yeah.
What about you, Holmes?
I'm more similar to Jacque, but I tend to sort of think in terms of really striking stills, in terms of my visual memory. But I have I have a very good memory for dialogue, which is fortunate given my profession. I mean, that's also something that I have improved over the last 4 years.
No,
because,
like my memory for specifically reading, my memory of specific quotes and stuff isn't that good. But so when I'm like recalling a plot of a book or something, I will picture the scenes that I imagined in my mind rather than remembering specific quotes or...
I saw a very interesting interview with Bernard Cornwell, the author of numerous historical fictions and who famously wrote the Sharp series. But he said part of the reason he drew that series to a conclusion was because when they started making the actual TV series of it and they cast Sean Bean, after a while he was picturing Sean Bean when he was writing Sharp, and he was quite aware of the fact that his editor was picking him up on a lot of inconsistencies, because Sharp in the books has dark hair, is from the south of England. Sharp in the series is from Sheffield and is blonde. So, it's really... It became very difficult for him to keep that consistency.
Yeah, like if I read a book based on a TV, or that's turned into a TV show or a movie, I'll picture the actors and characters from that movie. Yeah. So like, for example, when I read Harry Potter, I was imagining Harry Potter looking like Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, same.
And imagine Ron looking like Rupert Grint and stuff. And then there'll be like contradictory descriptions in the book, and I'm like, that doesn't quite match up with the picture in my head.
I skip those.
Yeah, I'm like,
dialogue
no, that's not
only.
canon.
That's what you read in books.
Yeah, and
skip
I'll
boring
imagine the
exposition.
dialogue in their voices.
Yeah, same.
I don't want to criticise Anthony Horowitz too much, even though I thought his last Alex Rider book was a cynical cash grab.
I didn't know he made another one.
He did, yeah, and it's
not
as good. And he forgets his own lore. He confuses Ben Daniels from Snakehead with Wolf from the first two books. And he conflates them and makes them the same character. And you're going, they're not the same character. Ben Daniels is Fox. He's not Wolf, you idiot. I mean, you created this universe.
I can't believe you confused that, moron.
I am just going, I can't believe his editor didn't spot this.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Given that I'm a reader, and I've spotted this.
And as nerdy as you might be about the books, you shouldn't be the one picking up the inconsistencies.
Exactly.
Yeah, in conclusion, fuck you, Anthony Horowitz, you sell out.
oh no. We don't want to get sued, guys.
We're calling you out.
That's a great conclusion. Yeah. I mean, yeah, agreed.
Our conclusion to how well, on a scale of 1 to 10, do you picture things in your mind? Fuck you, Anthony Horowitz.
Yeah. I'm gonna say 7.
I'm gonna ramp it up to 12. I thought I'd nailed this test.
10.
I'm gonna say
you can picture it beyond reality.
I'm gonna say 4.
I'm gonna say a soft 2.
I'll dial it down to a 10.
Wow.
Okay. Wow.
Well, it's only because I think I can use all my senses in my mind.
Yeah, it's intriguing to see how
it's intriguing to see how poorly I do science, given that I can picture things in my mind.
Sid, the most mistake you're making in your mind is that you don't have your physics engine turned on.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I do usually have collision off. Wall hack on.
What's next, Sid?
Well, the next thing is you were supposed to present something, Jacque.
Yeah, you're
our weekly presenter. What are you presenting?
Great. I mean, that's fantastic, because I definitely have something really, really great for us all today. I guess my area of expertise today is going to be on social mobility, and more specifically, employability skills. Right. Social mobility is basically like the idea that your social class plays a big part on how difficult it is for you in life to progress somewhere else, right? So it's one of the type of disadvantages, right? So there are many different types of disadvantages. They have various different effects, and they affect people on different levels depending on who you are and your sort of upbringing, right? So there's obviously, if you're born a female opposed to a man, that's going to have some influence on you. Same as if you're born black or Asian or any other ethnicity, all of those life experiences are very different, and it's very similar to what it's like being born. No, it's not very much like, but yeah, you experience disadvantages if you're born in the working class opposed to middle class or upper class, and that's what I'm talking about today. And yeah, so I guess my area of expertise is really employability, employability skills, really. So we've basically found that those from working class backgrounds who go to university, whilst their academic grades might catch up by the time they finish university, their employability skills haven't, right? And there are many factors to that, right? So a lot of working class people, they don't have the networks and the sort of support structures around them to understand, what sort of opportunities to be applying for when it comes to internships and spring weeks and training contracts and stuff. And also they tend to do less, they tend to perform less well in them, right? So in terms of interviews, they've never had someone to talk to in terms of getting interview coaching support. There are lots of specific industry interview technical skills which one needs, and a lot of time where students get those technical skills are from their peers, are from their father's friend who they talk to who works in this industry, right? So you can see how that plays a massive impact, right? And I guess something which I do genuinely have a big level of expertise on is employability skills with the consulting sector, right? So they're very competitive to get into, and something which as an industry they've all adopted is something called consulting case interviews, right? And they're designed to be very selective to make sure that they get the top talent in who can do this sort of very niche sort of work, right? But in actuality, what's happened is it's become this gatekeeper, and a lot of people who don't realize how difficult these case interviews are, they don't realize that they're even supposed to be preparing for it, whereas a lot of middle class students who realize they are going to be really difficult, they're hiring people to help coach them through these case interview sessions. In fact, there's a massive market in just teaching people how to do these case interviews.
So the case interviews are sort of intended as a meritocratic filter, but they've actually become sort of a bar to entry for some people because they don't have access to the kind of resources they need to practice and essentially do mock interviews and crib and do all the prep for this process.
Definitely, that's it. And there's a lot to it. I've basically worked with the charity that I work for to develop this 7-part course to just give people this crash course on how to do them correctly. But it's really difficult because a lot of the websites where the resources exist, they are behind paywalls, right? Or there'll be a few free trials and then it'll encourage you to pay. So it's really disheartening for my students when they're putting in all this work and they're trying really hard, but they know that those kids who can just throw money at this problem, they can tackle it significantly easier.
So I've got a question, Jacque. What do you think universities can do better to balance the playing field? And as a follow-up, is it something that should be focused on even earlier, since some people don't even go to university?
Oh, definitely. I think you should focus on it from secondary school and stuff. I mean, I had careers advice in secondary school as well.
But, we
I don't know about
ignored
you
that.
guys.
I remember it being tragically bad and not really.
I absolutely hated it.
So Jacque, from being in the industry yourself, what can people actionably do to make it better?
Okay, cool. I guess there's a lot of parts to that question. Let's just break it down. So initially you asked me about universities and what universities can be doing to make the sort of like playing field easier. And I think there's definitely lots of things that they can be doing, and there's a lot of things they can be doing on different levels, right? So yeah, universities can be partnering with organizations that exist out there specifically to fight this issue. You know, there's a wonderful charity called the Access Project who does a lot of like coaching for like between A-level students and university students, and A-level students lower. Same with a company called CoachBright. Same with another organization called Define Gravity. Okay, there are various initiatives out there to both level people in terms of their grades and their employability skills. Yes, and then what can people do? Well, if you're a person and if you work at a workplace, then I presume people have had to, people are hired to work at places, right? Which means you can help open that door to other people, right? So maybe you can go on Google and maybe you can find out what sort of charities exist in your local area, and you can get them involved with your workplace. And then Daniel asked about, Sid asked whether we should be doing this earlier. Yes, definitely, right? I don't think it should just be the lucky few who reach the sort of like university level that should get access to these sort of things. I think is everyone. And something which we're trying to do, which we're actually trying to compile sort of like a written brochure, like a magazine to give sort of boiled down like job advice to like young people. So that's like sixth form above. So any sixth former can kind of really go through and really understand, okay, these are like the options in front of me, right? I remember when I was a sixth former, I had no idea what sort of industries existed. I had no idea.
For people outside the UK, sorry to interrupt, Jacque. For people outside the UK, that's 17, 18, the end of school.
That's right.
Yeah, 12th grade, 11th and 12th grade, roughly.
And I think a big issue that is, a big issue in the UK is that the quality of sort of like careers advice is wildly varying across the country. Some schools do it fantastically, and some schools have like literally no one. So maybe we should like be pulling that sort of standard up on a national scale.
What would you say is like the main differences between these schools and why some careers advice is better than others? Is it just a reason of funding? Like some schools just can afford to have a much better careers advisor and stuff, and some just don't have the spare money to make it, and so the students just don't have access to those opportunities.
Okay. I think it's a predominantly funding based issue, but there is also like another element to it, right? Because I guess if you have a careers advisor who is telling a student, okay, you should be, taking on these unpaid internships, doing these sort of things, and that student can't afford to because in his summer he normally takes up a part-time job, so he can afford to do things. That's just not appropriate advice for them, right? He can't afford to take that unpaid internship. So I guess another thing we can be doing on a sort of national scale is making sure, hey, if you're an employer, stop giving out unpaid internships, right? It's actively blocking people out.
Yeah, so when we were still at uni, I applied to quite a few unpaid internships just because to me it wasn't a problem to do so. Obviously I couldn't do it forever, but it was more important for me to build that rapport with the company and potentially work there later. I didn't get any of them, but I did apply to a few. At the same time, when I was applying for it, I didn't say that I was willing to be unpaid. It's just, if it turned out to be unpaid, I wouldn't have had as much of a problem with it as it wouldn't have been a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, you have the luxury of not having to worry about money.
Yeah, for like as a student, yeah, that's a big thing.
So would you say that's one of the main reasons against unpaid internships, because it more favours more well-off students who can have the luxury of not requiring a salary or an income. So
yeah, there's a definite bias.
Compared to poorer students who are maybe doing less technically skilled work, but they're doing a lot more of it to make ends meet.
Definitely.
Yeah, and the thing that really annoyed me was big companies, or at least companies that could afford to pay interns that chose not to, simply to cut corners because they could. I understand if you're a startup with 4 people, you can't afford to pay an intern. And if that intern chooses to work there, that's of their own volition. And, you're upfront about this is unpaid. And if they take it, they take it. But if you can afford to pay them, I definitely think you should. And make it clear that you are.
Well, if you can't afford to be taking on work right now, should you be taking on work? I would say no.
It depends. It depends if you advertise this internship. I often just emailed companies I was interested in and told them I'd be interested in working with them.
I think it's okay if you have dedicated programs to educate people on what your business is, what you do, and why your business is special, right? But having unpaid internships, where someone is giving value to your company, I think that's actually wrong.
It's a huge problem in the arts, and it is a huge barrier to entry for a lot of people. I don't really understand when you look at a lot of the top actors in the UK, for example, why people are ever surprised when they find out what school they went to. I mean, Tom Hardy, for instance, who people often sort of look at, they go, oh, he plays a lot of, rougher, down and dirty sort of like, he plays a lot of sort of criminal working class parts. He plays a lot of those. But he went to Drama Centre, and he went to, I can't remember if he went to Harrow or Eton, but I can't remember which one. But, he's one of the sort of...
Money is not an issue.
Yeah, he comes from a moneyed background. He's actually from what would typically be called an incredibly posh family. And actually he arguably takes parts that should perhaps go to working class actors. But you go, where are those working class actors? And they don't... there aren't as many of them as there arguably should be, given that even a lot of them don't get in the first place because, there isn't the outreach. There's a different attitude to the performing arts in a lot of comprehensive schools compared to the private system, because the private system can afford to invest in artistic pursuits. They like Eton has one of the best theatres in the country. It's a school. It doesn't need a theatre that good, but when resources are cut in the state system, it is often at the expense of the performing arts.
The issue is, Sid, because so many opportunities are just so oversubscribed, where you have like hundreds of applicants per space, right? Even if you have like one in 20 people who can afford to be unpaid for an internship, if they say outright, oh, yeah, I'm totally willing to do this unpaid, it gives no incentive for that company to have a paid intern, which is leading to this sort of gatekeeping.
Yeah, it's an arms race.
I don't think. But I don't think that's ever going to change. Like the idea that someone will want to work for a company for free, that idea is not going to go away.
Right.
But I do agree with you that companies should not advertise unpaid internships. I think I stand with you when you said that if someone's contributing to the value of their company but not getting anything out of it apart from quote-unquote experience, that is essentially a crime. But
yeah, should it not be illegal?
If it's not a crime, it's criminal to do that to people. Essentially work them for free. I had another question, Jack.
Go on.
Changing tack. Now, assuming that I'm a student who doesn't have very good employability skills, what's the best thing I can do? If I'm nearing the end of college or university, I'm going into the industrial world. I've never really written any good CVs. I haven't got good interview practice. What's like the best sort of actionable tasks I can do to prepare myself for that?
Okay. This might just be me being a bit of a people person, but something which I think really helps is just speaking to people, right? If you aren't really sure what sort of industry you're interested in, and I imagine you probably aren't. Most people don't know. That's perfectly okay, but it just means that you have to speak to a few people, obviously. A lot of affluent young people can, just go to their families and see, okay, who in my family network knows someone who works as a actuary, let's say, and can I set up a conversation with them, or who do I know who is a lawyer? Let's talk to them. But you might not have that sort of opportunity. That's okay. There are organizations out there which you can Google. I can't name them because obviously one of them I am going to work for, and then the others will be our competitors. But yeah, you can find those. Something that I think is really useful is mentorship, right? So you can get mentors through charities like that, but also you can find them by yourself. So when I was at university, I knew that I was interested in the charity sector. I knew that I was interested in this field, right? So I reached out to various people in this industry. I talked to them. I talked about their experiences, and I talked about their sort of like journey up there, right? And I guess what was doing really, I was kind of just looking at them and be like, hey, help me. Like, I just need a hand up. I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you please like just show me how? And then I spoke to them, and they wouldn't, they wouldn't be able to really help me. They couldn't help me up any more than I could really help someone else up right now. And the thing is, you kind of have to find your own way. So you have to go out there, find out what exists, what interests you, and think, okay, what does my CV look like now? And what do I need to do to make it look like the perfect candidate, right? So when I do CV reviews, I think there is the stuff you can change now, right? So there are like the typos and the imperfections and the like silly formatting that you can fix. But like long-term changes, you do have to go away and you got to think about and do yourself, right? So I see a lot of CVs where they're just lacking in leadership experience, and that's okay. But you got to think, okay, what can I do between now and like the next 5 months to get that leadership experience? Maybe that's going back to university and applying for that president position or the treasurer position in a student society. Maybe that's starting up your own student society, or it's doing X, it's volunteering for its charity. It could be anything, right? It really depends on what your interests are, and it depends on where you want to go. But I think a great place is to start having a few conversations, working out where do you want to go, and trying to work out with someone else what you might have to do together.
Okay. I've got the opposite question. So no longer as a student, but let's say I'm interested in helping people get into my field. I could be whoever. I'll say focus on the UK at first, and then maybe some more broader things. What can I do if I actually care about getting people to a high level of employability, leveling the playing field for everyone? What are some things that I can do to help that?
You should Google social mobility charities, or maybe even social mobility coaching charities. But yeah, I think there is a load of good that mentorship can do, and it's something that you should keep an eye out on. What else can an everyday person do? there are like a lot of insight days and open days at various companies and stuff. You should try and look out and see if you can get involved in that, right? Something which is really fantastic for like increasing sort of applicant diversity is just having a diverse set of people at open days, right? So I've been to countless open days where, you know, the entire panel is going to be like, yeah, old white men, just nothing but, right? And I can see that when there is a diverse set of people, right? So when I see more women up there, or more people from working class backgrounds or BAME backgrounds, I can see that people from those students from those demographics do engage better with that, and they're more likely to apply, right?
Yeah, it's something that's familiar, so they can latch on to that.
Well, it's more like, okay, I can see that there are people like me who have done this.
Yeah, exactly.
I can do this too.
So Jacque, sort of a concluding statement for you?
I think diversity and inclusion is a really difficult topic. But as all things, it's just something really good to be aware of, right? So if you can think, okay, what is my employer doing to increase diversity and inclusion? Maybe you can find out what they're already doing, right? And maybe you can get involved in that. And if they aren't doing anything, well, maybe you can think, okay, what would I like my employer to be involved in? And can you start that ball rolling, right? Can you connect someone from that charity with someone in your HR department?
Right. I think that's a good place to end the section. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Speaking from Ignorance. Let me tell you where you can find us. We are on Anchor FM, Spotify, YouTube, sometimes.
Belatedly.
And other podcasting services are available.
Except iTunes.
Yeah, not iTunes. We're not on that. You can find us on Twitter, @FromIgnorance is the handle. You can email us any questions, queries, feedback at speaking.ignorance@gmail.com. Next week, the question I've got is, what's something new you've tried recently?
Yeah, okay.
Real tennis.
This is going to be a real tennis podcast.
I do, genuinely want to try it now.
So do I.
So do I. And the next presenter is me. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week.